Thanks for everybody who's logged in so far. Hey, Neha. Hey, Morgan. It's good
Hello.
to see you both.
Hi.
And
I was like, are there already a lot of people here?
we've got a few attendees starting to trickle in, and we're just waiting for Jane and Haley to get logged in as our other two panelists. But we've still got 2 minutes, so.
All right, I'm gonna drink some water then.
Yeah, please do. And really, I'll give everybody probably till about 1:03 to get really logged in here on the East Coast. So, I feel bad. I should have had like a playlist prepped or something here, so it wasn't just dead air. I'll see if I could find some. I'll stop sharing for a second. See if I can find some good music to put on as we.
Some elevator music.
Wait for everybody to get in here. Yeah.
Spa music.
Right. Can you just sing for us there, Morgan? That'd be great.
I can.
I would love it. It would be amazing. Let's see. It's always interesting to listen to what people play as a playlist, right? For something like this, like what does a doctor's office play?
Don't play that.
Right.
We'll fall asleep on Zoom, like.
Yes, we don't want that. That would be really like the opposite of your momentum there, right, Morgan?
Yes, we want them to stay upbeat, right, ladies?
Upbeat. All right. Well, by the time I actually find a good playlist, we'll be we'll be started here. So we're right at 1 o'clock. Thank you everybody for coming in. Let's see, we've got 4 of our 5 panelists. We'll just give everybody a few more minutes to get in here. And Don is saying, "Hey, coach," in our chat. So I'm not sure if you guys can see that in the chat function. And here's Jane. Excellent. Hi, Jane. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Well, thank you. And hi, Haley. It's good to see you too.
Good to see you guys too.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We'll give everybody just like 2 more minutes. We'll get started about 1:03. Let everybody get in. I love peeking at folks with bookshelves in their background because I'm like, ooh, what titles do you have that I don't have? What should I be reading? What's on your bookshelf? It's one of my favorite topics. So just for some fun while we wait for our attendees to come in, what's your favorite book on that bookshelf behind you, Haley?
Oh, let's see if it's actually here or if I've loaned it out. See, now I'm looking at my bookshelf and not at you guys. My number 1 business book I recommend is usually floating back here somewhere. It's Traction by Gino Wickman. And it's one that I just pull out all the time. Other than that, these are all, I think, business books. But the real fun story is that these are DIY bookshelves that my husband and I put together. So that's a fun story for.
Oh, that is a fun story. Did you follow a SkillPop class for that, or did you do it on your own?
So that's what the fun story was. We're more of DIY people now, but we weren't so much at the time. I was sitting in on one of our SkillPop classes, and she was talking about refinishing bookshelves, and I left the class to finish some emails. I was like, I don't have time to refinish furniture. And then the next week we were at the Habitat Restore, and I was like, oh, those bookshelves. That's like the project Casey talked about. So we brought them home, and next thing you know, I'm spending my whole summer with a bucket of paint. And
I have a couple projects for you if you want to come over.
Right?
You know, I'm slow enough, and really my husband did the heavy lifting building the casing. I'm slow enough that you probably don't want me on your project list. It's a true labor of love when things happen over here.
Excellent. So Neha, I see a bookshelf behind you too. What's your favorite one back there?
So I started reading this when I was on maternity leave. It's called The Mindset, The New Psychology of Success.
Is it Carol Dweck?
Yes.
Yes.
So I really like her, and it's just parenting, business school, everything. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not done with it yet. I got through like half of it, and then I was done with maternity leave, and so here I am. But it's a good reminder to go back and read it, you know, with the holidays coming up.
Yeah. Jane, I see a few behind you. How about for you?
Yeah, the section you're looking at is all theology. The section over here is all sales and leadership. And I'm a voracious reader, so I don't usually have a favorite, but Marshall Goldsmith's What Got You Here Won't Get You There is an amazing book. And I just started reading, Trey Gowdy wrote a book called It Doesn't Hurt to Ask. It has nothing to do with politics. It's all about using questions for communication and persuasion. And I can already tell you it's going to be my next recommendation as a sales book.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
good.
Coach, how about for you? Favorite book?
Oh, we give them categories. So, so my favorite book is Start With Why, right? Start With Why with Simon Sinek, and the book that I'm currently reading is Big Magic.
Nice. I'm a big fan. I keep it so close it's in range because you can't see my bookshelves. They're all right behind me. But Immunity to Change, Keegan and Leahy. It's amazing. I'm actually in a 3-day workshop right now to facilitate an immunity to change process with clients, and it's fantastic. But all right, we are at 1:04. So we're just going to let folks kind of trickle in as they trickle in. We're going to go ahead and get started so that we can make the most of everybody's hour here. Just wanted to start by actually introducing our panelists and letting everybody get to know them. So I'm just going to go down and just introduce everybody kind of in the order that that I've got them on my screen. So I've got Haley, and Haley founded SkillPop. She is, it's a company working to make expert-led learning accessible. So she spent 4 years scaling her in-person model across the Southeast, hosting classes and workshops in cities in Charlotte, Raleigh, Nashville, Greenville, Atlanta. And then with COVID-19, her team had to launch SkillPop Anywhere. And what was it, Haley, 4 weeks? 4 days? It was
a 2-week turnaround.
2 weeks, somewhere in between there. And so that's a new platform for live engaging online classes. We're really excited to have Haley here with us today. And Neha is the owner of 2 companies because, you know, we can't be slackers here. She has a recruitment agency that helps scale tech startups and a pediatric sleep consultancy that helps women and children instill healthy sleep hygiene. Haley, or I'm sorry, Neha, you're in Texas, right?
Yes, I'm in Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. Awesome. And then we've got Coach, the people's coach, Coach Morgon. He's the owner of Latitude Pure Coaching, and he is a Marine, has been for the last 22 years, and still makes time to empower his athletes and people of the endurance community daily with his energetic smile, which I'm sure we're going to see a lot of today, and his positive outlook on life. And you're at Fort Bragg? No, that's Army. Oh my goodness.
I didn't even
Oh my goodness.
I'm not even going to reply.
I'm so embarrassed.
Okay,
My brother was at Fort Bragg. Don't knock it. Careful.
I'm not knocking it, but I'm a Marine.
He's a Marine, and I'm a Navy
June.
vet. I'm a Navy vet. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, Coach. I'm so sorry.
I'm in Jacksonville, North Carolina at Camp
June.
It's been a long day of learning, and my brain is a bit fried for this. So I apologize, everybody. So guys, we're so happy to have you here with us to share about how you've changed your businesses in this crazy time that we're living in. So I'm just going to share my screen really quickly just to walk us through a couple of ground rules and a little bit of our agenda here today. Here is our is our great panelist. I'm Nicole Odom. I am a business cardiologist. I help folks heal their business and love their life. And I own my own practice, Nicole Odom Coaching. And I appreciate everybody so much for being here with us today. So today, oh, Jane, did I not introduce you, Jane? I'm so sorry. I am so sorry, Jane. Let me stop sharing really quickly. Oh my goodness. See, again, my brain is a little bit fried. So Jane has more than 30 years of experience in sales, sales management, executive coaching, keynoting, leadership development. And she's coached and consulted with many of the largest brands, including the Home Depot, Coca-Cola, Philips, Mercedes-Benz, GlaxoSmithKline, and First Data. And she's currently the CEO of Fusion Staffing, which is a retail and experiential staffing firm. Fusion enables brands to engage their customers and improve loyalty in any environment nationwide. And you are coming to us from outside of Atlanta, correct?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm so sorry, Jane. Let's try this again. So I just wanted to walk everybody through what we're going to do. We've just done our introductions, and we're going to do about 30 to 45 minutes of a guided Q&A for our panelists. And what that means is I'm just going to ask some questions. We'll do a little bit around Robin. We'll do a little bit of direct questions for each of our panelists. And we'll keep that to right at about, we'll do a hard stop there at 12:45, no matter how the conversation is going, so that we can open it up for Q&A from our attendees. While we do have our panelists discussion going on, all of our attendees will be muted. If you do have something that comes up for you, go ahead and raise your hand or put it in the chat if we can find a way to kind of stop that conversation and interject it, we will. But the time for that is really at the end. And just a reminder for everybody, our webinar is recording so that we can share it with any attendees who weren't able to attend last minute. If you do have any questions that we aren't able to answer for you during this webinar, my email is coach@NicoleOdomCoaching.com. I'll put it in the chat for everybody. And you'll get a follow-up email from me at the end, making sure that we've answered everything that you need to. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and we're going to go and just get into the meat of what we're here to talk about today. So I do just want to take our first question as around Robin, and each of our panelists, if you could kind of walk us through. So we're in mid-March. Everybody's trucking along into 2020, and boom, COVID-19 comes to the US. What does that look like for you and your business? And Jane, you're up on my screen. Can you share with us first what happened for you guys?
Yeah, we, right before COVID-19, we were about to sign contracts that would make 50% of our total annual budget. So we were killing it in January, February. When COVID hit, we lost every bit of that business and every bit of our legacy business. We sell people, right? We provide people for our customers to be face-to-face in an event environment, in a retail environment. When people can't meet, we can't provide people. So we had zero revenue, not $1 in April, May, June. I think we are one of, other than airlines and the hospitality industry, the event industry is among the hardest hit in the nation with COVID. So it was pretty dramatic.
So you had a really innovative way to recoup some of that revenue. Will you share that with us?
Yeah, so we got together as a team, and really, I think I kind of asked the group to forget about what we do for a minute. So forget about, the business that we're in, even the kinds of customers that we have. And let's answer two questions. One is, what are our assets as a company? And secondly, what is a problem that's in the marketplace today during COVID that we can solve? What's a situation that customers are facing that we can solve with our assets. And, you know, a lot of companies say that their people are their asset. Well, for us, I mean, that actually is our biggest asset, is that we have folks nationwide. And we had been getting some calls from labs who were getting requests from corporations, distribution centers, processing plants to do COVID testing for letting their employees back in. And they said, we don't have people to do that. We're just, you know, podunk little lab in, you know, Pocatello, Idaho, or whatever it is. And so one of the things we did was to train some of our staff around the nation to do COVID testing. And we partnered with these labs to train our staff to do all the processing of the testing. So that's one of the areas where we transitioned. And the other one is, at the end of the day, brands must be face-to-face with their customer. There will not be a situation where everything goes digital for brands. They've got to see their customers. So virtual brand advocacy is another area that we moved into. I think when you and I talked, I told you that I've been a Zoom advocate for since it first came out. You know, Eric Yuan called me when it first came out, and we talked about, you know, how do you like Zoom? What do you think about it? I've been telling salespeople for years that relationships are built face-to-face, and Zoom is a great tool for that. So now the rest of the world is kind of catching up to that, right? And realizing you can build a relationship like this. You don't want to be on the telephone. And during COVID, it's even more important. So even though we all have Zoom fatigue, I think it's been a powerful tool for us and for our customers to continue to build and maintain important relationships.
I think that's an excellent point, Jane, because I know for me, I hate the phone. I don't know how anybody else feels about it.
I don't use the phone.
I hate it. And I don't even want to talk to my mother on the phone, but I'll have a Zoom call all day long because it feels so much more personal. I can read body language and I can just connect with the other person on the line so much.
Yeah, and the other thing I've said to people for a long time, Nicole, is the fact that your client gets on a Zoom call, and this happened even before COVID to me, sweaty from the gym, or holding their 3-year-old that keeps running around the office, or their dog barks in the middle of the meeting. To me, that's actually a great thing, because it kind of plows through some of those barriers that we have in early on conversations with people that we don't know. It makes you real and authentic very early in the conversation. And so I think people have realized that. I mean, I got my 2 dogs laying on the floor right now, and I'm thinking, you know, I put a note on the front door, please don't ring the doorbell, because, you know. But at the end of the day, it's those kinds of things that make kind of break down barriers for us and make it faster and easier to build relationships.
Yeah, it helps us find those connection points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for sharing, Jane. Haley, will you tell us about how SkillPop transitioned in early March?
Yeah, I will. So similar to Jane, we are a little bit of an events industry company. If anyone's not familiar with SkillPop, we are based in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where I am right now. And for the last 5 years, we have done in-person classes and workshops. So our early business was gathering small groups of people inside to learn something new from a stranger, which is not super COVID friendly. And that was the entire business model. You know, it's funny, I spent all the years pitching this company, talking about how online learning didn't work for me, talking about the magic that happens in a real classroom, you know, in whether it's learning gardening on a farm or learning to paint in a brewery, just the magic that happens in person. And so for us, you know, there were a couple of problems that came up with COVID and with everything happening. I mean, for one, our original business model was pretty impossible right off the bat. You know, it was something that was completely shut down. We're a startup, we're a bootstrapped company. We haven't raised any funding. And so we had to make a move really quickly to be able to stay in business. So there was that issue just of revenue. But then of course, it was almost a big creative problem as well to think through. If we do something online, if we sell an online learning product, you know, how do we do that in a way that feels authentic to who we are and that still feels like our brand and like our core, and like it's not, you know, doesn't go against what we've been building for the last few years. So to what Nicole said earlier, we spent about 2 weeks in early March prototyping, testing, and then launching a product that we call SkillPop Anywhere. They're live online classes, still taught by the same experts we've worked with for the last few years on a wide range of topics, everything from home decorating and interior design to watercolor, hand lettering. Last night I was in an empanada making class with a chef originally from Puerto Rico who recently won Beat Bobby Flay on the Food Network. So we've got a really fun range. But it has been just a wild year in a lot of ways. You know, we just turned 5 as a business in September, and the way I felt is like we're starting over. You know, not like we're a 5-year-old company moving into the next phase, but like we're a new 6-month-old company starting something new. So I've taken a lot of what we learned in the first 4 years of being in business, but have made a lot of changes as well.
Yeah, it's almost like a do-over.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Coach Morgan, tell us about how things transitioned for you.
I don't know if I can follow those stories, man. That was they made some big changes, man. You know, we carry about 30 athletes, right? Me and my coaches, and we have like ambassadors as well that are on the team. And it was a big shift. It was actually a good, because one, the Marine Corps, the military kind of shut down. And I was like, oh, I got more time to do business stuff now. I can actually do the coaching. And I was worried because there were a lot of coaches that athletes were dropping like fly, like you said, the people, like we in the business of people. And so people were like, okay, I ain't got no job. I can't pay you, right? And so I had to start thinking like, okay, what if this happens to me? And I not only was I thinking about that, but I read a book. I think it's called Trafficking something. It talks about like internet traffic and social media. And it talks about what happened if everything just shut down? Because basically that's what happened, right? Everything just shut down at once. And would you be able to sustain the things that you put so much work in? So if all your, everything was built into Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, like that all went away, what would you have, right? And so that made me think is like, I need to create something that is more, I guess you would call it in the bigger scheme of things, client experience, right? What could I do to create that experience for all my athletes and work on that, and not just be keep them accountable, but being empathetic to what they're going through. And so basically, I guess I would call it as I gave people some grace. Right. I'm a very like coaching. You got to be on top of people 24/7, guiding them in directions, because I do athlete life coaching as well and executive coaching. So you have to be there for them. And so what I had to do is, instead of being so, not as rigid, right? When it comes to coaching, I had to be more empathetic and compassionate and having grace for my athletes' needs, right? And that forced me to kind of see them as a deeper version of what my purpose is. Like, how can I bring more value to their lives and their experience? I got lucky where I kept all my athletes, right? I have some people left, but like the amount that went out came back in. So I've always had the steady stream of income coming in the whole time. But what I've really focused on is being empathetic, being compassionate, right? Putting words of wisdom in their training, giving them quotes, right? We did some fundraising at the beginning for first responders and virtual races. So I had to do things that I normally would never do, right? Because I run a coaching business, right? But what I wanted to do is make sure that I kept everybody, instead of worry about the physical health, I kind of transitioned to their mental and emotional health, right? That's what was important, because I always, especially when it comes to athletes, I don't treat them like athletes, because they're husbands, wives, sisters, and brothers before they're athlete at any time. So they come with experiences and life needs, right, to do that. So that's kind of where I kind of shifted from the physical side more to the mental and emotional, to let the athletes know, especially even the ones that couldn't afford it, right? I'm like, okay, they can't afford coaching. Should I keep them on? I brought up a policy where we keep them for 3 months and, stay there with them, because guess what? Even if I'm not helping them, they're not paying me either way, the way it goes. So I was like, how can I build, like, I think she said it about, how do I build loyalty and get in front of my people more often? So I started doing Zoom calls, and Zoom is, people got Zoomitis for sure, but like it did a lot for us, so I can talk to them and let people vent and just get that stuff out of there. It's that mental and that emotional, I guess, makeover. Yes, I like that.
And you used the time pretty productively for yourself too, didn't you?
Yes.
There was a book, I think.
Oh,
maybe.
that thing. Okay. Well, yeah. When we started off, and I think Shannon is actually on here listening right now, where she helps me write all my content, right? And so I was like, let's write some blogs. Like people are on their computers more, and like most people, I had a lot of coach friends that, well, I'm just going to take this time to figure out me, and I'll come back when COVID is going away. Right. And then I was like, well, if that happens, guess what? You probably ain't gonna be relevant when COVID does go away. So for us, we started doing the blogs, and I was like, okay, try to engage people. Then I was like, why not just make it a book? So I wrote a book. I wrote a book during COVID, and actually we wrote one, and we just finished the first transcript for the second one. Right, all during the COVID time period, because I had all this free time. I wasn't at work, so what's an hour or two a day to actually bring value to somebody else? And that's what we did. Wrote the book, Becoming an Amazing Coach.
That's awesome. Thank you, Morgan. Neha, you have not just one, but now two businesses to manage through this crisis. So walk us through, like, how do you prioritize the two, and how are you managing the changes that you've had to make for each of them?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Nicole. Thank you for the panelists and the participants for being here. Super excited to be here. So on the recruitment side, of course, I kind of identified a little bit with Jane, even though I feel like we're in different niche and different industry. We did have a little bit of a hit on the technical recruitment of it, but then what I did is I totally changed the gears. And then I was thinking of like, what are the companies or organizations who are going to be hiring during this time? And it's going to be the medical tech, the farm tech, anything in the hospital industry. And so we just switched gears to go from IT and technical hiring to kind of more of the med tech and farm tech. And then we had about, I would say, end of March, early April, where things were like a little shaky. And that was okay, because it kind of helped me do other things, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But then it was just kind of reprioritization, reorganization of what I wanted to do. I did not let go of any of my consultants. I have 7 of them. They were working for me. Now we're at 11, but I made sure that I was still, making sure I was paying for them, whatever their hourly were, because of course they have families, right? Like we all do. And so it was out of pocket. The other thing I got to do was really work on the Sleepy Cub. So that was, born with my daughter technically, because she's born in December of a 10-month-old. And I, really launched it, and I had a lot of time to go into, website design, blogs, ebooks. And so Morgan, just you talking about that as well, that was really cool, because I had a lot of time to sit down and launch a few ebooks in the safe sleep space for parents. I'm very hungry right now, so excuse if I don't make sense. Just gonna be honest. But yeah, so I just got a lot of time to do that and just refocus. And I really did take, some days and just was like, hey, I'm just gonna like play with my son today. I'm just gonna call it a day. He's almost 4. And so just having that time with him, because, schools were closed. So when he would come back home from my parents' home, just like, okay, we're just gonna take 2 p.m. and we're just gonna play with him, and then we'll start back up at night. But it really allowed me to take a step back and reprioritize my recruiting company, but then also launch the Sleepy Cub, which, the Sleepy Cub couldn't have come at a better time, because there were parents who were struggling with naps at home. The daycares closed down all of a sudden. So my calendars were getting booked really quickly on the Sleepy Cub. So it was cool to have that balance of like, okay, one business is, like, we're shaky, we're going to get there. And the other business is starting to take off. So that was really, really cool to experience.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Neha. So, Jane, I want to hit back on, on you for just a second. Like, you've got all these employees and all these contractors that you're trying to staff for all of these brands. So how do you keep your top employees, not just employed, but thriving and engaged when you don't know what's coming down the line? If you'd unmute yourself, Jane. Jane, can you unmute?
was trying to be courteous to everybody, and there you go. We have 15,000 people in the field, and had, I don't know, 25 or 30 people in our office, many of whom were furloughed during, or continue to be furloughed actually. So I think that there are a couple things that were really important, Nicole. One is, you know, people are really freaking out about what's going to happen. Those folks in the field seem so far away from actual information that it's easy to panic, right? And it's easy to believe the negative Nellies out there that are saying, oh my gosh, our industry will never come back. It's never going to come back. Well, fortunately, I'm old. And so, you know, older than most of them. And so I've said, guys, when you get to be my age, you've been through a few COVID-ish experiences, right? Not COVID, it is a special kind of a thing, but 9/11 and the recession, and you get to see that what we do is very important. And so it will come back. And in fact, it'll probably blow back because there will be such a need that has been pent up during COVID. And so I think it was super important for us to continue, me especially, to be in touch with those 15,000 people in the field. So I did Facebook town halls. So much like this, I got on Facebook. I would tell them what we're doing in our business to try to keep people employed. I would tell them what I see happening in the marketplace, good and bad. I would tell them what I see the government doing and what we can do for them in terms of helping them with unemployment and other kinds of things. What should they be doing during this downtime? This is an opportunity for them to improve their videos, improve their resumes, do things like that. So coaching them to say, don't just panic, use this as an opportunity to get yourself set up for the next step, to get yourself set up to get more work when we come back, right? So that's what we did and continue to do for our folks in the field. I don't know that anybody else did it. We get a high rate of participation. We get a lot of people saying you're the only one that's helping us to understand what's going on. And I just think it helps to mitigate the fear. You know, fear is caused by a lack of information. Yes. And so good or bad, to the best of my ability, I'm giving them as much information as I can. For our internal employees, our furloughed employees still show up every Thursday on a Zoom happy hour. Drinks are optional. And again, we meet as a team. I talk to them about what's going on in the business. How do I see business improving or not? What parts of our business are improving? Very, very similar to what is happening in with our external employees, our field employees. But I think more than ever as a leader, you have to communicate. You have to over communicate. So for the I don't know who's in your audience, but for the leaders in your audience, what I would say is, if you've never read Marshall William Bridges' book called Transition, might have an S on the end of it, Transitions, this is a time for you to read this book, because it's all about what happens through adversity, what happens through change in our lives. Somebody asked somebody about a book and they brought up a book about change. Change always creates a loss. And during COVID, there is a crapload of loss. I mean, there's just loss beyond what you could describe for a lot of people that are in our workforce. And so understanding the psychology for people about what happens to them as they go through a period of loss. What do you need to do as a leader during those periods of loss? That process and understanding that is more important than ever. And so as a leader, you've got to over communicate. So, you know, I said on a video recently, at the point where you think, oh dear God, if I have to say this one more time to these people, you probably have still not communicated it enough, right? And realizing that you will experience a lack of productivity and a lack of engagement during this time. You'll experience a lot of introversion. that people, even the best team players on your team right now, all that's going through their mind is, how is this going to impact me? How is this going to impact my family? And so addressing those things as a leader, being open, being authentic with them, and not trying to sugarcoat the information, but allowing people to make decisions for themselves during a time like this is super important. So
That's such great information.
Get definitely a book that if any of your listeners or your people in your read your blog that are leaders of teams, this is the time to read that book right now.
Yeah, I think you hit on a couple key pieces there, the frustration and the grief that so many people are feeling. And Haley, I would imagine that you're coming up against some of that too on a customer side, right? Where people are so ready to get out of their house and go back to doing things. How are you managing that expectation from your customers to keep them satisfied in this new model that you've created, where they don't get to sit with a chef and learn how to make empanadas in person, but they have to do it in their own home and buy all the ingredients and do all those things on their own?
Yeah, well, I want to add one thing to what Jane said, because Jane, I loved your notes and your encouragement about communication. And for us, being a much smaller team, I have 3 people full-time. One of the things we did during COVID was also just to take things really, really bite-sized in a week at a time. And so that's the thing that kept rattling through my head while you were speaking, is just thinking back to in this time where no one really knows what to expect or what's happening. We've really, in a lot of phases of this year, just taken things truly a week at a time. You know, the customer side, Nicole, has been interesting. I expected a lot of what you're talking about, of people saying, oh, I can't wait for in-person to come back. I really miss gathering with people. I can't, you know, I'm ready. We really didn't hear any of that for a long time. Most of what I heard was actually from a customer base that we weren't serving previously. You know, we heard a lot more people write in and say, even, you know, in April and May, when things are serious now, but early on, people were writing in and saying, are you going to keep online classes? Or I hope you keep doing SkillPop anywhere. We heard from a lot of new moms who used to come to class and now have small kids, and it was way more convenient for them to put the kids to bed and then tune in for a class at 7 or 8 o'clock than to try and get a babysitter and, you know, drive 20 minutes across town. We heard from a lot of people who live just on the outskirts of the cities that we operate in. Previously, we were in about 6 major Southeast cities: Charlotte, Raleigh, Atlanta, Greenville, and Nashville, Tennessee. We heard from a lot of people who were on the outskirts and said, oh, it's so much easier and so much more convenient to take the class online and not commute in. And then we heard from a lot of people who have moved. So lately, I've gotten a few people writing in and saying, I miss gathering, I miss people interaction, you know, what are you thinking for in person? But I think, I don't know what I know people are craving it, and I know people are a little all over the map, but I'm seeing way more people finding their in-person connection in small groups with friends and family versus in a model or in a, you know, a group with strangers like our business used to be. So what I'm anticipating is we'll start seeing more at-home parties taking virtual classes, more, you know, people doing it for their date night, doing it with neighbors, with friends, things like that. So we're constantly thinking about how does the product we have adapt to the moment that we're in? But kind of same thing to culture and to communication. We're still looking out, not all that far in advance. You know, every 4 to 6 weeks, we are still looking at things and reevaluating and thinking, okay, how is our product relevant to where people are right now?
Well, and I imagine, you know, as I was reading through your bio, you guys were in what, like 5 cities in person before COVID. Like, how far has your reach extended now that you're able to go virtual?
Oh my gosh, I was in, this has been a fun week. I feel like I keep dropping the classes I was in this week. I'm so sorry. It has been a very fun week. And so I was in a pie making class on Tuesday. We had students from Amsterdam, Paris, and Japan. And that was certainly not the norm. You know, we have a huge base in the Southeast. That's where a lot of people know us. That's where a lot of our customers still are. But especially early on, I could tell we were reaching all the moms. Like, our customers who have loved SkillPop for years, I was getting all of their moms in Florida and Indiana and New York signing on. So I think we've reached the, you know, our organic reach. We've gotten to be family and extended family. And we've also been pulling on teachers from other areas of the country, which has helped expand our reach as well.
Excellent. So Neha and Morgan, I want to kind of maybe tag team you both on this one, because you guys have business models where you typically go into someone's home or go into, you know, a place with someone together. So how has the virtual interaction that you've had to transition to changed the way that you talk to your customers, or the way, you know, like, Coach, how do you even assess how an athlete is doing over Zoom?
I do. For me, I have a gift, I would call it, right? I can hear things in people's voices and their behaviors. I am very big on building loyalty with my clients, right? My I call them family. And so just like with any, if you are close enough to somebody, and I have the ability to do that because I'm a lot more, right, hands-on, talking to them, and I can see them on a regular basis or talk to them, and I know about, you know, their families, what they're going through, what their kids are going through. And so what you would do with anyone that you really care about, right? When they have these nuances of changes in their voice or their behavior, you catch on to those things. Like you're not your normal self type things. And so I'm able to hear that, or, you know, I'll text somebody and you may not hear back from them 2 days, or you see a workout, so you'll see 3 days to go, you know, red, and you know that it didn't happen. And you're like, okay, something's wrong with this person's always consistent. Right. And so it's the ability to just be very like laser focused on like, how are they doing, and always asking that question. Like today I'm going to reach out to them and just ask them, how's everybody doing, what's going on, anybody want to talk, and just continuously be communicating and seeing it. Zoom has been, it's all right. You know, I don't really, it is. And cause I've wrote some stuff about Zoom care, like, you know, how you do self-care with, you know, from Zoom and stuff like that for some bigger audiences I've spoken to in corporations wise. Right. But like Zoom it takes a lot of energy, right? It depends on like what you're doing and to read people. Cause like how we are, like, look at everybody's listening. There's no movement going on. So like if you watch the stuff that I do, I'm very animated, right? Because I want you to get moving. I want everybody else to move, because like you can't, like the only way you can see what they're doing is like to get them to get that feedback. So you damn near, I'm sorry, you can become an entertainer on Zoom, right? Because you, as you teach classes, like she teaches classes with SkillPop on, you can't just be like dry eyes, red eyes. You can't be that way. You gotta like engage them. You gotta be asking questions, giving them skills to do, like repeating that over and over again, right? And people enjoy that because most of the Zoom calls are very structured, right? So what I've learned to do on Zoom calls is like, I want to engage you. I want to make you raise your hand. I want to make you answer questions or be prepared to ask the question, and just continuously engage back and forth with them so they can feel like they're a part of something, not just listening to something. I call it death by PowerPoint. That's what we call it in the Marine Corps, right? You just get to keep hitting the button, next, and then next thing you know, like, what did you learn? Nothing, right? But if you make it, like I think all the ladies would agree, is like if you make an experience connect emotionally with a customer, they will actually hold on to that memory for a lot longer than if you just, you know, tell them what to do.
Yeah. Are you finding the same, Neha? Like, talk to me about how you're going to keep some of the changes that you've developed in the Sleepy Cub, which I imagine is different than you anticipated it would be when you started it.
Yeah, no, of course. So when we first started it, you know, I had a plan of offering in-home consultations, you know, locally, of course, in Houston, Texas, because I can't, you know, fly anywhere. And then all of a sudden that was like not going to work. So we had to switch our model to be 100% virtual. And then my concern was, how do I know how these children are going to progress without having any sort of consultation? Like, how are these moms going to trust me, right? And honestly, I was just as authentic as I could be with them. So, you know, during the calls, I was like, hey, you know, we're going to do a screen share. We're going to talk about your sleep management program. So, like, I could see on the phone, like the mom's holding the baby, they're nursing them, they're still playing with them. And I made it, I feel like it really just broke down that barrier, because initially, you know, pre-March, pre-COVID, when I thought of Zoom calls, I was like, I have to have my makeup on, I have to get my hair done, like I have to wear something cute, like look like, you know, presentable. And now all of a sudden it was like, sometimes like my son would just walk in and be like, hey, let's play. And I'm like, hold on, like, give me a second. Let me, you know, get him out of the room. Let me get him out of the office. And I really feel like that built a lot of authenticity, because with the Sleepy Cub, my target audience is moms, and no mom, I mean, for the most part that I know of, unless it's on Hollywood or TV, dresses up in high heels and like the jeans and the tight shirts. Like everyone's in yoga pants, pajamas. I am 100%, I'm going to own up to it. I dressed up for you guys today. So, but you know, for the most part, we're just a very casual thing, right? Because you're going to have spit ups and you're going to have spills and like, so just being able to connect with people on that authentic level, I think really kind of helped me scale, because then it was like, hey, I know somebody else was looking. And, you know, one mom even told me, like, I really like that, you know, when you were talking to me, you know, when you were pumping, and it was like, oh, wow, like, that's fine. You know, that's normal. Right. And so I feel like that really broke the barriers down, and having that one-on-one connection, I feel really helped. And that's what I'm going to strive to keep. So even when I do my Instagram lives or Facebook lives and I talk to people, you know, I'll just say, oh, like daylight savings is coming up, like this morning. And I was like, let's get on a quick live here and talk about daylight savings and sleep tricks and tips, right? And there was not much thought that went into it, where I feel like pre-March, I would have been like, I need to dress up and look good and like have a script. And it was just very much on the moment, on the spot. And I feel like that's something that we should learn from this experience, is that building that authenticity and getting rid of that fakeness that really doesn't need to be there, because, you know, we can just connect with each other as humans before we connect each other as, you know, business people. And I think that's really what sells your audience. And that's really what keeps people coming and keeps the referrals coming.
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of authenticity and communication themes from all of you. And I want to be mindful of our time and give our attendees a chance to ask you all questions. So I just want to open up this last question to all of you, and feel free to answer as you will. But if all of this change, we've talked about change, all of this change can be really difficult to manage. We all feel fatigue. We all feel grief around how things should be or how they could have been. So how do you keep the love alive in your business when you are trying to manage your own grief about the change, and your own fatigue in managing kids and managing dogs and managing business and managing maybe virtual school and all the other things that we have to do? And oh, by the way, you haven't left your house in 3 weeks.
I mean, I'll take a crack at it first, if you
Sure.
guys don't mind. I think for me, the biggest thing has been just being gratitude and thankful for what I already have and how far I've come. And just knowing that this is just a little bit of a hiccup, and it's a really good time for self-reflection, whether it's on a personal life or professional life, and taking advantage of the downtime and thinking of what I could do better, right? So I feel like that's what I've really learned, and just spending time with family and the kids as much as I can, because they're only little for so long. And so just really kind of reflecting. And, you know, there are days when if I get frustrated, I just walk away and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a 2-hour break. I'm gonna go for a walk, or I'm gonna go eat something with my husband. But just like really being able to take a step back and not being so pressurized by being perfect. And, you know, just taking actions, even if they're imperfect, but just acting on what you want to accomplish in your life instead of like waiting for that perfect moment. Because if COVID's taught us anything, it's that life's not perfect and this is going to happen. And so, but being able to, you know, be thankful about it, and then just taking positive actions towards professionally or personally, I think that's something that I've walked away with.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else?
I would say a lot of people have said to me, especially our folks back out in the field, Jane, the world is not going back to normal. And I'm like, well, bless your heart, sweetie. The world has never been normal. You know, this is an opportunity to learn how to work through adversity, right? This will not be the only time in your life that you will have to deal with hiccups in your business like this, you know. Lucky for Haley that she experienced it 5 years in instead of her first time experiencing it 15 years in, when she's, you know, hardwired to do business a certain way and maybe wouldn't be able to adjust as quickly as she is now, because she's very entrepreneurial in the way that she's looking at her business, right? So the world has never been normal. This is a great opportunity to learn the things that you need to do to get through adversity, to take baby steps, as a couple people have said, to try to not be paralyzed, to appreciate the mini wins that you get, right? And really kind of, if you're a company that has employees, come together as a team and try to problem solve as a team, and realize that coaching inside an organization doesn't really just happen like this. This is the way we always see coaching inside of an organization, is top down, right? Well, in a highly functioning organization, coaching goes this way and this way, right? So it's an opportunity in your business, and personally as a leader, to help people, to be a coach in your business and help people figure out what are the tools that they can use to manage their way through adversity, because we will get through COVID and something else will pop up. That's the nature of life, right?
Right.
So I think one of the ways that when we're not exhausted, because this is an exhausting experience, what we realize is, damn, this is a great resume builder, right? That's what I keep telling my team. This experience is an amazing resume builder for you. You are getting an MBA right now in how to get through tough times in business. This will not be the only tough time you experience it. So learn those lessons right now.
Great thoughts. Haley, I saw you unmute. What did you have to share with us?
I was just going to say, I think about how to stay in love with your business. For me, a huge thing has been just chasing the things that are the most energizing. And because, I feel like if you're in small business, if you're an entrepreneur, you've gone through all the stages of grief, you've gone through the whole emotional roller coaster, and it has the thing that has kind of, I think, kept me afloat as a leader and kept me in it and kept me engaged is getting to just still do the things that bring me the most energy. I thrive in the beginning stages of things. I love creating, I love dreaming up and problem solving, and kind of the early building part of entrepreneurism and of startups. And so even though I've hit all of the emotions going through COVID, I've also really enjoyed, kind of like you said earlier, Nicole, getting to start over, getting to build something from scratch again. So I think just, even if it's not the primary day-to-day, finding those things that are that give you the most in business and carving out the time to do those has been important for me.
Yeah, I think we all get so focused on some of the things that we've quote unquote lost with COVID that we don't always focus on the things that the opportunities we have and the chance that we have to reconnect with why we love this in the first place, and to even be more productive. I mean, Dan Morgan's wrote a whole book. Like we've gotten so much opportunity to do things that we wouldn't have done otherwise. I mean, I don't think, Haley, that you would have wished to start a whole nother business 5 years in, but the excitement that you talk about in being able to build it again in a different way and to learn on the lessons that we learned the first time are really a fun opportunity in a way that we didn't really expect. So thank you guys all for sharing that. I want to now open it up to our attendees. We do have one raised hand. Diana has her hand raised, so I'm going to unmute her and give her a chance to talk. So Diana, if you can hear us, go ahead and share your question.
Well, embarrassingly enough, that was a technical error on my part. I've been listening intently and enjoying the material. So thank you, panelists, for sharing your stories and your information, but I don't have a question. Sorry.
That is totally fine. So if anybody wants to ask a question, you can raise your hand here on Zoom. And you do that by opening your toolbar that's on the bottom section. If you're on a PC, if you're on your phone, just tap the screen and you should be able to bring your toolbar up. And then you hit the participants button and it should bring up an opportunity to raise your hand. So we do have in the chat that Evelyn has bought the Transitions book and says thank you for that recommendation, Jane. And folks, you can also put your questions in the chat if you need to. While we're waiting for some hands and for some questions, does anybody have any kind of final thoughts, things that you want to make sure that our other small business owners listening in today don't leave before they hear?
I'll go really quick. A lot of people with the COVID felt like they've lost something, right? And the way we view, and basically everybody here, if we thought that way, then we basically, it's almost like a form of giving up. Like we've lost everything, and there's no hope in the future. It's like, you know, this great quest is just, it's going down the drain. But Jane has talked about it, right, multiple times. It's like we have to make the best of it. You have to pivot, just like we were talking about, as in the sense of, you can look about how much you don't get to see people or the things that you're not able to do. But I tell people, like, why don't you just be bored? Like, God forbid you just do nothing, like just for a moment in your life, because when you're a business, especially an entrepreneur, for me, right, some of my most, you know, this quiet times, alone times have created that spark, is like that idea that has created my company, or a process, or some way of, you know, handling a customer or a client that I wouldn't have thought about with all the other chaos going on in my mind, right? So not only is it time to reflect on who you are, but reflect on what you can do for your business. For me, I'll tell you that what it helped me to understand is, like, I learned how to scale my business in the sense where I was just trying to coach. I was trying to be, you know, self-employed basically. But through this time, I've been reading a lot more, right? And to this point, I think I've read, I think I'm at like 70 books this year, right? Because of COVID, because I've had so much time just to read. And it made me read a book called The E-Myth Revisited, right? And
Good book.
really
Great
good,
book.
changed my life, right? All of like came to one when I read that one. And it's like, how do, because I always worry about how do I replicate myself as a personal coach, right? And so it talks about the entrepreneurship and scaling to franchise models to be able to provide that. I would have never read that if it wasn't for COVID, right? So it gave me the ability to see things in a different light. And
I think there are two things that I would say. One is, it's very easy to be paralyzed in a time like this. So take action, even if it's the wrong action. If you take action, you're going to learn from it and you'll be able to course correct. If you do nothing, you're going to stay stuck and everybody else is going to figure something out, right? The second thing is, you know, we're in a relationship business. I happen to be a big relationship person. I have been very intentional about reaching out to my network, including our clients during this time. And not with an agenda of trying to get work from them or try to get anything from them, frankly, but it's those conversations that I have with other people that are going through things like this that spark some of my creativity. So I try to get out of my own personal bubble and out of our own experience of misery to connect with the people in my network, to read more things online, to expose myself to different things so that it sparks creativity and we can take some action. And we, you know, I told you the two things that we've landed on. There are half a dozen other things that we vetted, thought about, tested, that failed, and that's okay. But don't live in a bubble. Get out there and talk to your network and be that person that empathizes like Morgan does for his clients. But just those conversations about what other people are going through, what things they're trying to do in their business, will likely spark some great ideas for you. And if you don't have a network that you can do that with, then you need to get yourself serious during COVID about building out a great network of people. And I don't mean names on LinkedIn. I mean people that you know well enough that you'd go to coffee with, that you could talk about business with. If you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a mastermind group, this is a great time during COVID to find 4 other people who have complementary businesses or completely different businesses, but sell to the same customer or something like that. I have 2 mastermind groups that I meet with every few weeks, and we just help each other out. So if you don't have a mastermind group, COVID's a great time to figure out who are other professionals that you can talk with on a regular basis and vet some of your ideas or brainstorm together.
That's some great advice. Charlotte, I saw that your hand was raised. Did you have a question for our panel?
No, again, it was user error. I was trying to resize my video. I'm in a different situation. I'm really just trying to, I started a business early this year, January, February, was just starting to ramp up. And then COVID hit, and it's based on meetings in offices. And so it's completely gone away. I'm just trying to decide whether to pivot, as you say, versus putting it on hold for a while. I'm just trying to decide how to handle that.
What is your business, Charlotte?
I teach interpersonal skills to young professionals. Basically, my target market are the millennials in the workforce, and a lot of them are great with technology and a lot of automated processes, but some of them have not had a great deal of learning or instruction in interpersonal skills. And so my goal is to go in and teach seminars to these young professionals to teach them how to better communicate with not only their peers, but also customers or coworkers that are in different generations.
Yeah, so to Haley's point earlier, I also have over the years been very biased towards in-person development, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in things like soft skills.
Yes.
But what I would say is, don't put yourself in a box like that. There are some platforms. One of the platforms I love, learning platforms, is called Jubi, Jubi.
Okay.
And the benefit of Jubi is, there are 2 things about learning and development. I always tell people there's a reason it's called learning and development. Learning is really content delivery, right? Which is what we're accustomed to on digital platforms. And a lot of times it's what we've done in-person learning. It's like me reading a book about how to play golf. The development part is that part where the learning is actually in action somehow in the business, right? So that's me being with a golf coach, totally different, right? That's the application of it. What Jubi and maybe other platforms like it do is it enables you to marry those 2 things in a way that leverages community, which is really big for millennials and younger people, right? Creates online community for them. But it also enables you to take activities away from the computer and give them things to do where they come back and report in. So it marries very well. I think the learning and development requires a lot of creativity from you as a content developer. But I don't think you should toss away your idea just because it does seem like the thing that makes the most sense, right, is to do that in person. But I feel like you don't have to give up your business just because of COVID. There are some ways to be able to do that. And then you could add on the back end later on back into some of that in-person stuff. So I would encourage
I do want to stop us just right there. We're at 2:01 and we've got 2 other questions. I want to give these folks just a quick chance to ask their questions. Charlotte, I can try and get the rest of your questions. If you want to email me, my email is in the chat, and we'll try and get some solutions going for you, if that's all right.
Thank you.
So Dawn, I see your hand is up. If you want to go ahead and share with us your question.
Yeah, so sorry, my name is actually, I guess, looking like it's spelled wrong on the site, but
sorry.
It's not your fault. It's obviously how I put it in. No, my question is, so I'm a training center coach for a cycling company, and we do coaching for cyclists as well as triathletes and stuff like that. That's how I know Coach Morgan. And so we pivoted to a virtual solution that people could use their trainers in their houses so that we could have, you know, still have classes and stuff. We have gone to where we are in studio as well now. And so I was wondering, you know, what suggestions you might have to still keep, you know, the virtual side going, along with coming back in the studio for those folks that aren't still comfortable coming back. Obviously, you know, we usually have about 20 slots. And right now we're only at 5 in the studio, just for the fact that, you know, making sure that we're being responsible and socially distant, and it's a little bit easier to control how many people are in, obviously, now versus later. But coming into the winter months, we still want to be able to have our studio, but then also reach those folks that maybe we haven't been, you know, won't come out.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody want to take on that question? Coach?
I can jump in.
Or Haley?
More.
Yeah.
Morgan, if you want to take this, it's your expertise.
I talk to her all the time. You can talk to her.
And by the way, I do a lot of the SkillPop classes. They were a wonderful thing for me, especially since I am by myself in my house. So it was a wonderful thing during COVID, especially in April and May. So I love the classes. I've been a definite patron of yours for about 5 years now. So.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing that. That's so sweet to hear. No, the couple of things I was gonna share was pretty quick, but just look at what other studios are doing. I've noticed a couple here in Charlotte that I've seen doing both virtual and in person, or some kind of mix. So I would look at, you know, your competitors or similar businesses in other cities and model after what they're doing or try and learn from it. The other thing I was going to say, I don't know if this is helpful, but I find that we try and choose fewer things to do well. And so even in deciding whether we were going to do in person or online or both or a mix, it just came down to, I knew with our specific team and our bandwidth and our customers, I knew right now we couldn't do two things well. So it just came down to which one of these makes the most sense for our base and makes the most sense for the times that we're in. And we're focusing all in on that. So, and then of course, listen to your government's health guidance as well.
Great advice. All right, and Shannon, you're going to be our last question for our panel.
Well, she just covered some of it based on Donna's question, but my question was for Haley. So the second part then would be how you decide on the relevance of what you're offering, because you have a lot of different people that are teaching in different ways to go, but how do you decide if a course is working or not, or what's going to be the most beneficial for your company and your clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one I get all the time. So I didn't touch on this earlier, but if you, we play in a couple of main buckets at SkillPop. We do a lot of DIY crafts and hobbies type classes. So that would be your watercolor, your embroidery. We used to do a great weaving class, kind of fun things you would see on Etsy or Pinterest. We do a good bit of business development, especially towards entrepreneurs. Right now we have graphic design classes, social media, marketing, leadership. And then our last category, it's actually growing a lot. We have a lot of food and drink courses right now. So at home bartending, wine tasting, we just introduced a cake decorating, and then a couple classes I mentioned earlier. When we are choosing classes to list on our website, we're a little bit different than some other online companies in that it's a pretty curated list. And a lot of that is just is bandwidth and is the way that we're marketing. So we try and not be a huge marketplace where you as a customer are weeding through tons and tons of options to find your right class. We try and have a shorter list. So we first look at, does it fit into one of those three categories? And then we're looking at, does it kind of cast a wide net as to something our audience would be interested in? We are constantly testing and reiterating. We do a lot of seasonal rotation. We do a lot of just taking requests. People will message us on Instagram or write into our website all the time saying that they're looking for certain kinds of classes. And of course, we have people writing in that are interested in teaching as well. So it is a little bit of an art and a little bit of a science, and it's changing all the time.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
All right, I want to thank everyone for attending, and I especially want to thank our panelists for devoting the time today to share their knowledge and their expertise, their time, their talent, their treasure with us today. I think there's just a wealth of knowledge here in this virtual room that I know I've learned a lot about. And if anyone does have any questions that come up for you in the next day or so, or you didn't get a chance to get answered today, I put my email in the chat. You'll also get a follow-up for me. If you have something for a specific panelist, I'll do my best to connect you with them. So there will be a recording of this. If you'd like to share it with somebody who couldn't attend or you think might benefit from it, it will be on my social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter and Instagram. It's everywhere. I just want to thank everybody so much for spending some time with us today. I'll stay on if anybody has any last minute questions as everybody else drops off.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. Good to meet you all.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Likewise.
It's been my pleasure, y'all.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet you.
I'm gonna stay on with you.
Well, thanks. Your energy makes me want to like get up and move, man. Like especially sitting in a certification class all day. I've been like, my butt's tired.
Yeah, I got to do some workouts here. I just wanted to. No, it was good. I think everything went very well. I've also bought the book while we've been talking. The